Good morning and welcome to this monthly Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission is an advisory board to the Board of Commissioners. We hear all the zoning cases and make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners makes the final decision on all zoning and land use related matters. Their hearing this month will be November 17th. And before we get started, we're going to have Pastor Jeff Giesman from the Burnt Hickory Church of Christ come up and lead us in prayer, and then follow. Yeah, and can we ask everybody to keep quiet?
Bow with me if you would. Holy and gracious Father, we praise you and thank you for this beautiful day you've blessed us with. And I pray, Father, as this commission convenes, I pray that all that are here will be here to speak in good terms, that their hearts will guide them to say and do what is right and correct in all things. Father, I thank you for everyone who works here, and I pray for them and for their families. I thank you for their willingness to be servants to this community. Father, I also pray for our country today as we go through this electoral process. I pray for peace. I pray for good hearts. And I pray that we may consider all people equal and honorable as good human beings and create creatures that you have made. And I pray, Father, for the goodness of this country, that all may be according to your will. Thank you again, Father, for your blessings and for a good day today. In Jesus' name, I ask this prayer. Amen.
Now we're going to ask Tim Pierce to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He'll be representing all the employees of Cobb County.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just didn't see one. And, okay, well, thank you to Pastor Giesman and to Tim Pierce for leading us in the prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. With that, before we get started, I want to tell any speaker who comes up, we've put hand sanitizer and wipes up here at the podium. So feel free, if you want to wipe it down before you start, feel free to take a few seconds to do that. With that, I'm going to turn this over to John Peterson, our zoning division manager, to announce our procedures for the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Board, and good morning to everyone who's attending in person and virtually. Today's hearing will be conducted virtually and in person. For those that are attending virtually, we're going to follow the following procedure. As each case is called, we're going to recognize those who are here in person and also recognize those that are participating virtually, either in support or opposed to a specific case. For virtual attendees to support or oppose a case, you want to indicate in your Q&A box that you would wish to speak or oppose or support a case. For instance, if you want to support a case, you would type in the case number with the letters SUP for support in front of it. So for instance, if you're here supporting rezoning case Z13, you would punch in SUP Z13. Additionally, if you want to speak on the case that you're supporting, you would type into your Q&A box SUP Z13 speak. Also, if you're here to oppose a case, the process would be very similar. To oppose a case, you would want to type in OPP and then the case number. So, for example, it would be OPP Z13 if you want to oppose that rezoning case. If you want to also speak on a case you're opposing, you would want to type into your Q&A box OPP, the case number, which would be Z13, for example, and then speak. Speakers will be called by name. Your line will be unmuted. And at that time, we would ask the speakers to state their name, where they live, and that they affirm that they've been sworn in. For today's hearing, the following process and procedures will be used. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, we would ask the applicant to please stand and signify that they are here so that can be counted for the record. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone here in person to oppose a case. We would ask those that are here in person, please stand up and raise your hand so that they can be recognized and counted for the record. Then after the counting and recognizing of the applicant and any opposition, they will both be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can start presenting testimony to the board today. The applicant will be sworn in first, and then the opposition, if any, would be sworn in second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case of concerns. There's not a process for rebuttal or to reserve your time, so you need to convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if there's more than one person here who wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with other people on the same case about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board would start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more speakers to come back to the front for additional comments or questions. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued and will not be heard today. And they are, first case is rezoning case Z13 of 2020, Arturo Martinez. This case has been continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z13 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z39 of 2020, KO Management Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z39 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z52 of 2020, Carl Edward Dills. This case was continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z52 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z59 of 2020, Tamina A. Patwari. This case was continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z59 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z61 of 2020, Greenline Partners LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z61 of 2020 will not be heard today. And finally, case ROD1 of 2020, Atlantic Realty Acquisitions LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 1st, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So ROD1 of 2020 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman and Board, we did get a request late last night to continue one of your cases that's on the printed agenda. Is the applicant present for rezoning case Z54 of 2020, Galaxy Children's Land LLC? The applicant did submit a request last night, Mr. Chairman and Board, to continue this case so they can continue working on it. And there is some folks here opposed to it, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, I believe the applicant should be online. When I spoke to him last night, he said he would be registered in online, Ryan Pulley.
Okay, and how many people are here in opposition?
The opposition may already have left. They came up earlier and they were here to confirm that it was in fact going to be continued.
Okay.
So unless there's any objections otherwise, then, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we accept the applicant's request and continue this until the December hearing.
Okay, and we have a second from Alice. All in favor of the motion? That carries 5-0.
Okay. I would like to ask people in today's audience for the in-person part of the hearing that if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phone as to ringing.
Then, Mr. Chairman.
And any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 or more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of this room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted to the board after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Mr. Chairman and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Thank you. Cobb County Planning Commission zoning hearing consent agenda for November 3rd, 2020. First case on consent is rezoning case Z63, Linton Herring. Request a rezoning from R20 to R12 for a single-family residential subdivision or one house in land lots 169 and 170 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southeast side of Oakdale Road, south of Farm Lake Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan and building elevations to be approved by the District Commissioner. Number two, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number three, Water and Sewer comments and recommendations. And number four, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z63? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z64, Lagos and Colony LLC request a rezoning from CRC and NS to CRC for light auto repair in land lots 14, 15, 58, and 59 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Austell Road and on the south side of Windy Hill Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan to be approved by the District Commissioner. Number two, Fire Department comments and recommendations. Number three, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number four, Water and Sewer comments and recommendations. Number five, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Number six, adherence to the Austell Road Design Guidelines. Number seven, District Commissioner to approve the building elevations. And number eight, a letter from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated October 9th, 2020. Is there anyone here in person opposing rezoning case Z64? No. Let the record show there's no one here opposed to rezoning case Z64. And last case is rezoning case Z65, Christopher McMillan. Request a rezoning from O&I to CRC for RV trailer sales in land lot 372 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Canton Road and on the north side of Blackwell Circle. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan last revised September 18, 2020. Number two, letter of agreeable stipulations from Mr. Kevin Moore dated October 28, 2020. Number three, site plan review comments. Number four, stormwater management comments. Number five, water and sewer comments. Number six, Department of Transportation comments. Number seven, variance to landscape buffer along the west property line only for the existing encroachments. And number eight, adherence to the Kent Road Design Guidelines if site is redeveloped. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z65? We're going to check that real quick.
You still talking? Do you want me to keep it up? Yeah.
You want to put it on hold temporarily? Mr. Chairman and Board, they're talking about it right now, so we would ask to kind of put this one on hold right now until they have a final resolution. So we're going to leave that one off consent right now.
Yeah, we'll just pull it for now, and we can add it back on if they get it worked out.
Okay.
No, we haven't voted on the consent agenda yet.
Okay. And I believe Commissioner Williams wants to add some cases to the consent agenda.
That's right. Mr. Chairman, I spoke to you briefly, and I have some cases I'd like to add to the consent agenda. These were cases that we had been working on with the, oh, I just tore that letter, that we've been working on, and the opposition was worked out, but Friday was closed, so I couldn't get with staff. So, John, I would like to add SLUP 8, the, let me find it in my thing. And I would like to add a stipulation as soon as I find SLUP 8. that.
John will have to read that in the record
Yeah,
first.
John's, SLUP 8, John, you want to do that one first?
Okay.
We'll do them one at a time.
Special land use permit case, SLUP 8 of 2020, 1420 Lockhart Holdings LLC, requests a special land use permit for a transfer station and outside storage in land lots 131 and 132 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of Lee Waters Road at the termination of Heatherland Drive.
And I'd like to add one step to that, and that would be truck access to remove the dirt and debris to be from Canton Road, as long as applicant has easement from the railroad. And I talked to the applicant, and the applicant was agreeable to that.
You want all staff comments and
And
recommendations?
staff comments and recommendations.
Was there any opposition to that case, SLUP 8?
Mr. Chairman, I thought, my notes from our planning meeting were that, or work session, were that there was going to be some stipulation that this would be for vegetation debris only? Has that been changed?
That's what I said.
That's what it says?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any opposition, we'll leave that on the consent agenda. Next case, Judy?
Okay.
Okay, next
And then my next one would be
Is that Z44?
44.
Let me go ahead and read that one in real quick. Rezoning case Z44 of 2020, Peach State Salvage Incorporated, request a rezoning from GC and LI for furniture sales, including light manufacturing and assembly in land lot 637 of the 16th district. The property is located on the west side of Kent Road, South Blackwell Lane. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z44? No, there's no one here in person opposed to rezoning case Z44.
Okay, in that one, I'd like to add the letter of agreeable conditions that's dated from Parks High from October 28, 2020.
Okay. I guess we'll go on to the next case.
Okay. Next case is rezoning case Z45 of 2020, Springhouse, Kennesaw. Request rezoning from LRC and GC to RSL for an assisted living memory care facility in land lot 55 of the 20th district. The property is located on the north side of Hickory Grove Road, southeast of the intersection of Hickory Grove Place. Is there anyone here opposed in person to rezoning case Z45? Let the record show there's no one here in person opposed to rezoning case Z45.
Okay. And John, that one also, I would have one stipulation that the applicant, the final site plan, I believe you might have it in your recommendation, final site plan to be approved by the district commissioner. All staff comments and recommendations. And if I'm reading correctly, no variance is issued on the site.
Okay, is there another one you want to add to consent?
Keep on going.
Let me keep
I
on
thought there
going
was
here.
one.
No, that was my last one. Oh,
Okay, I thought you said 4. So,
okay, so John, we have SLUP 8, 44, and 45.
And just to clarify, your motion for Z44 can include all staff comments not in conflict with your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
okay,
Thank you,
with
Mr.
that,
Chairman.
can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
A motion to approve as presented and amended.
Okay, and that
Second.
is, okay, and just for clarification, we want to make sure, which was the case we were pulling off?
65.
65. Okay, so that is without Z65. Okay, and we had a second. Okay, so all in favor? Raise your hand. Okay, that carries 5-0. For those of you who are on the consent agenda, your business is done here and you can leave, but please be sure to come back for the Board of Commissioners hearing on November 17th. Thank you.
Okay.
John, let's move on to the regular agenda.
Okay, first case we're going to hear is rezoning case Z49 of 2020, Sutter Hill Vinings LP, request a rezoning from RM12 to RM16 for multifamily development in land lots 886, 887, 888, 907, and 908 of the 17th district. The property is located on the east and west side of Twin Lakes Drive, south of Paces Ferry Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z49? Let the record show we have one person here in person opposing rezoning case Z49.
Okay, do like I did.
And we have 27 people here virtually opposed to rezoning case
When we get through this
Z49.
one.
With a number of those people virtually who would like to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's okay.
There's 3?
I did the same
Okay,
thing
3.
last month.
So we would ask the applicant to come forward to be sworn in, so can present their case.
Okay, whenever you're ready, give us your name and go
Okay,
ahead.
thanks. My name is Ryan Snodgrass. I'm here representing this client with Sutter Hill Investments, the owner of the property at the district at Vinings. We've actually had after discussions last night, we do have a request. It's come to our attention over the past months of discussing this with Tony Rainbright as well as some of the local citizens. That the issue here is based on height of the building and the density that's being proposed on the current apartment complex site. We do feel, after discussing with the architect, Jerry Spangler with TSW, and with the owner, Nick, that we can manage some of those issues, such as the height, as well as manage the density possibly through the height. In regards to phasing out the project through a slightly new proposal on how to implement senior living on the site. With that, we would like to request a continuance to next month to work out those details. And with that, we would like to have a work session, if possible, with planning staff to ensure we are still on the right track. We understand that this will still require a rezoning to RM16 and a change of the future land use map. So those items will still be needed for this proposal. So we would still be requesting the RM16 and the activity center future land use designation with the sub-area category of high-density residential to be applied. And with that sub-area, we know there will be conditions, to restrict the height and the density based on staff recommendations. And that's the purpose of why we would like to have the work session with them to finalize those details.
Okay, now go ahead and give us anything else you want to present, because we
Sure.
are going to hear from opposition, and then we'll decide whether we'll hold the case or whether we'll take other action on it. So I want to give you your full opportunity.
Absolutely. So it's known that Nick recently purchased the property, and he does have a desire to improve it. Currently, it has 464 apartment units on site, and he would like to maintain those, but he also sees the opportunity for implementation of a condo development on site in keeping with the comprehensive plan, small area plan that suggests that senior living is appropriate for this area. So he would like to implement 118 for-sale, age-restricted senior condos on the site. This is backed up by a consultant with Sotheby's International Realty, who has stated, and I believe is in the record, his memo regarding the condo market in Vinings reflects a low inventory of units with only 2.4 months supply as reviewed in his statement. The district, we believe, is positioned to capture this need in this area and bring a new tax base to the area of the 118 units. We do see this as the first phase of the district, understanding that a future phase will require a reduction of the current rental units. However, the applicant requests that the first phase be able to be implemented while also maintaining the apartment dwellings to ensure that this will be successful before apartments are removed. We also understand that the existing zoning does allow for a density bonus by removing a certain amount of existing rental units to implement for sale product. However, based on preliminary calculations, this is not working out in favor, as the current site was had the RM12 designation applied to it. Its current apartment density is above what is allowed by the current zoning. So just quick calculations show that if he removes 118 apartment dwellings, he still does, even with the density of 17 additional units, he will not be able to even maintain the same unit count on site. And so that's a real concern of the applicant and why we are being cautious about how we are moving forward with this site and trying to implement senior housing. I think with that, well, I see 5 more minutes. So I'll just go ahead and review a couple of things in case they come up in opposition. Regarding the position of the building or the location of the site, we are in the northeast corner there where the existing tennis courts are. As you see on your screen, that's where the proposed building is to be. Directly east and west, or excuse me, west and north of that, the adjoining property line, is a parcel owned by the master plan community. That's on the other side of Vining Slope Road there. That is their stormwater management. That's on its own parcel. That is our neighbor. We do not adjoin directly against any residential uses at this point. This is a low point in the site, which is why we see stormwater management happening there. So with that, where the tennis courts are and the building is to be implemented is the low point of the site. We have, with that, 2 levels of structured parking to bring the condo building to grade at Twin Lakes Drive. This is one reason that it's pushing our height to that number of 74, I believe, 74 feet, which is a scary number when just said aloud that we're trying to implement. But if you really look at the conditions there and the topography challenges of trying to get a main entry level onto Twin Lakes Drive, we essentially need that plinth. And it just so happens that that plinth can also maintain our required parking for the condo units and keep it all self-contained, which makes it a tidy phase 1 for this potential senior development here at the district. So there would be 5 levels of condos above the structured parking there. And those 5 levels of condos at street level, I believe it comes to 55 feet in height. We do understand that that is still over the required the maximum height of 40 feet for the RM16, excuse me. However, in discussion with our architect, we believe that we can further reduce that height to get it closer to the required 40, so we're not 15 feet, not asking for a 15-foot height variance. And the reason I say a 15-foot height variance is because also we believe that we can push the building into the berm so it becomes, the front facade is actually touches the at grade of Twin Lakes, and therefore the height of that residential building is measured from Twin Lakes to the top of the roof versus considering the plinth that the building is sitting on. And that is from a preliminary review of the definitions of how heights are measured, and that's another reason we would like to further discuss this item with county staff and the planning commissioner, Tony. With that, I believe that's all I said. I have about 1 minute 40 seconds left. I'd ask if the architect has anything that I might have overlooked. Jerry? No?
No, I think you've done a good job of that. Again,
We can't hear you.
You can't speak from out there. You'd have to come up to the podium and get sworn in before you come up.
Can I say something to him briefly? Can I say something to him?
And give us your name for the record to start with.
Yes, Jerry Spangler, TSW Architects, Director of Design. We are ready to work with the commission and also address the issues that the neighbors have. I think there was some reluctance to the transitional style, the look of the project. We can certainly continue to take that into a direction that's more appropriate, if you will, regarding the neighbors. And as has been said, we think we can work towards all these other issues in a correct and compliant way. Thank you.
Okay, if that's, thank you. You're done? Okay, now we'll hear from the opposition.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. I'm Ron Siphon. I live in Vinings, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Vinings Village Homeowners Association. And let me just mention, in response to one of the things that the applicant said, I just want to point out that the properties adjacent to the applicant's property did have a very small density bonus that was consistent with county code for RM12 that was applied for the 100% complete redevelopment of the property to remove old rundown apartments and other rental properties, well, in this case, apartments that the county felt like needed to be replaced. The applicant in this application in C49 is not proposing to redevelop the existing old apartments on this property. That's a major, major difference between the two. So anyway, Cobb County has a master plan, the Vinings vision for this area. Staff has made the applicant aware that Z49 is not in conformity with the guidance of the Vinings Vision Plan and is not in conformity with the county's land use plan. Z49 is not merely in conflict with the land use designation. This property has specific guidance written into the land use plan, and in addition to the specific guidance for the property, the property is also in an area that the land use plan designates as the Paces Ferry Transition Zone. Z49 is requesting a regional activity center intensity use, even though one of the primary objectives of the Paces Ferry Transition Zone was to provide a small buffer between the rack north of Paces Ferry Road and the low density residential development that's just on the other side of the Paces Ferry Transition Zone. Z49 would literally destroy the intent of this transition zone. Outside of a rack, HDR is limited to a maximum of 12 units per acre, which is why RM16 can only go into racks. It would be detrimental to the other neighborhoods throughout Cobb County to set a precedent allowing RM16 outside of a rack. The applicant is asking you to ignore the specific guidance that the BOC unanimously adopted into the land use plan only a few years ago and offers no justification other than just simply asking you to ignore the land use plan. When staff developed the specific guidance for this property, as well as the language for the Paces Ferry Transition Zone, they looked at the redevelopment that had occurred on the neighboring properties only a few years earlier from the time that they developed that language. The adjacent properties were all 100% redevelopment replacing old rental properties with new for sale residential homes. In Z49, the applicant is proposing to keep all of the old apartments and to be allowed to add additional density to this property that is inconsistent with all of the other redevelopment that's occurred in the area. Z49 is nothing more than an attempt to increase density for no other reason than to increase density. In addition, this is the wrong place for a 78-foot high building. It would adversely impact adjacent and nearby homeowners. The intersection of Paces Ferry Road and Twin Lakes Drive is already a safety problem. There appears to be a significant stream on the portion of the Z49 property where the applicant is proposing to put the building. It appears that the applicant is going beyond merely encroaching into the stream buffers. It appears that the building is proposed to be built on the stream itself. The Z49 property already has a reasonable use. They're not entitled to a density boost just for the sake of getting a density boost. We urge the Planning Commission to make a recommendation today and not delay this case. If the applicant wants to talk with anybody between now and the Board of Commissioners meeting, they're free to do that. And we ask the Planning Commission to recommend denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Next speaker.
We have 3 virtual speakers. The first one is Chris Rideout.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
we
I'm sorry.
alternate, I think. I think we alternate back and forth, so. Go with the first virtual speaker.
Okay, Chris, you're unmuted. You can speak now.
Excellent. Thank you and good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Chris Rideout. I live in Vinings, Maine. I'm the president of the Vinings, Maine Residential Homeowners Association. And I represent 148 owners. And we are all adamantly opposed to this rezoning. Ron mentioned a lot of the factors involved in our opposition. We have, many of my residents have emailed you. We also have a petition. The majority of the residents have signed opposed to this. One of the big things I wanted to point out is we have an issue right now with our building of numerous residents from the district, cutting through our parking garage to access the signal at Vining Slope and Paces. As Ron mentioned, we're Twin Lakes and Paces intersection at QT is a very dangerous situation right now. So a lot of residents cut through our building parking, which is a challenge and dangerous in itself. Adding an additional density will just make that situation worse. So I don't want to take up too much time. I know there's others who want to speak, but just wanted to voice our opposition and for the residents of the Vinings, Maine condo. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And now we'll have the next in person.
Actually, there's a request to let the next virtual person speak, because I guess it's very important.
Okay, well, we'll do that if you're fine with that.
Our next virtual speaker would be John Hightower. John, you're unmuted.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm John Hightower. I'm speaking this morning on behalf of the Battery on Paces Ferry Townhomes in Vinings. I'm vice president of our board of directors, and the Battery includes 80 townhomes and approximately 130 residents, and we're the closest neighbor to the proposed building. The Battery was developed in accordance with the Cobb County Code that requires the maximum building height of no more than 40 feet. And the building is proposed is directly adjacent to our community, and if built, the 78-foot high monstrosity will be within 120 feet of our nearest townhomes. If approved, the building will adversely affect the value of our townhomes and be a permanent eyesore to our entire community. The residents of the Battery are opposed to this requested change in zoning and will request that the Planning Commission deny the applicant's zoning request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. And now we'll have the next in-person.
Thank you.
We have about 2 minutes left, and I think we have one speaker here and one virtual.
Well, hello, everyone, thank you. I'm a resident of Vinings, and I just
Could
want
you
to
give
say...
us your name?
Oh, sure, Miss Mila Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Vinings, and I just think that as a resident and just a normal day-to-day person, when you say that you're going to build something higher than the required amount, it doesn't seem right, and it doesn't seem like an excuse. I understand this is for, seniors. My mother is a senior, of course. I want her to live well and safe.
Ma'am, can you speak up here?
I'm sorry. I apologize. Of course, I want seniors to live well in a safe environment. My mother is a senior as well, and I understand, the vision, but I think they don't understand the rules here. It's great that they have the architect here, but we need an engineer. An engineer tells us if this is right, if a structure should go over a stream. It doesn't seem right to go over a stream. I like water. I like streams. I don't want cement and I don't want cement and hazardous materials in my water. I have enough of that Chattahoochee River, thank you. I don't understand how you can break the rules and how you can bring an architect but not the engineer here. I don't understand how that works. 40 feet is 40 feet. Enough is enough. I say deny this. Do not let them build this. There's so many other great places to build. That makes sense. There's another reason why they want that building there, apparently, but they don't want to say it. Bring the engineer here. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And our last speaker, let's go ahead.
Final virtual speaker is Phillip.
Okay, and we just have like 20 seconds left, so.
Carl, you're
Good morning.
unmuted.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, and I'll talk as fast as possible. My name is Phillip, and my wife and I live at the Aberdeen and really have enjoyed and appreciated the character of the Vinings since 1986. This morning, I speak on behalf of the Aberdeen Homeowners Association for the 88 homeowners at the Aberdeen. And I would want to present today the signed opposition to Z49 application by submitting our entire building's opposition. Not one individual of the 88 individuals that live at the Vinings favors the application. I will send that to presentation at cobbcounty.com. I'll move on because as skillfully as detailed by Ron Siphon and supported by John and Chris, first and foremost, the application is inconsistent with both the Vining vision and the Cobb County zoning. I'd like to remind everybody that the application is contrary to the Vining vision, which was developed, and this is very important, with the efforts of the Vinings community, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, the Cobb County Planning Commission, the county manager, and the Community Development Agency. And it included such notaries such as Georgia Tech and the Department of Transportation. The mission was to create a long-range strategy for the Vinings. As detailed by Ron, the application is absolutely inconsistent with the Vinings vision in the zoning plan. Lastly, simply from our view, what's being asked is repurposing 2 tennis courts consisting of 80,000 square feet into a 7-floor, 118-unit condominium with a possible new 200 residents and a minute chiseled away from the district. The board should not approve the rezoning application for the justifications mentioned by the speakers. Thanks, and have a good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and they went over about 1 minute and 53 seconds. Would the applicant like to come up and speak? So that we give you equal time, you can have 1 minute and 53 seconds.
All right, no, I appreciate that. Just a couple of things. First of all, the very passionate speech regarding the stream. We are aware of the stream on site. We do have an engineer that has been retained to review this. The stream is currently piped under the neighboring development that is so opposed to our site, which is ironic. The pipe does empty out into an open stream bed that is on the applicant's property and goes into the lake there that is shared by, I think, about 3 different people there have ownership of that lake, or maybe just 2. However, we do feel confident that that stream, based on our engineer's review, can be piped for the purpose of implementing a building at this location, just as done on the neighboring development. Regarding the transitional zone and the Vinings vision, the Vinings vision stated the recommendation to implement the transition zone. And that transition zone, we do know, is of concern and is recognized within the comp plan that was recently adopted. So the focus here is on meeting the goals of the comprehensive plan. And with the transition zone, we feel that we can do that. The area does have a mix of uses, starting where the Aberdeen was, the high-rise building, John Wheeling townhouses, then the district multi-family building, and then the apartments. So there already is a variation of building types in this area.
About 10 seconds.
And so we are really looking at how can the density and the height be managed at this point. So I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you. With that, we close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to this board. And this is in District 2, so Tony Waybright is handling it.
All right, thank you. Can you expand the view back out so we can see Paces Fair? There we go, perfect. Several items have been mentioned. We had some information that came in late Friday on DOT. I was able to confirm with staff that that was simply the submittal information, not the actual traffic study that would have been required for this type of development in this location. While many options were laid out by the applicant for future changes and things that they wanted to consider under a continuance, and while we usually grant great latitude to a request for continuance, all of those changes are still predicated upon changing the zoning to RM16, which would increase the density above RM12. All of the other developments on this side of Paces Ferry have redeveloped under RM12, or they have been at the RM12 designation with the density bonus, as has been mentioned, that's allowed in code for complete redevelopment of rental units to ownership. The other item, and if you'll scroll back up so we can see the Paces Ferry there, please, is that even if we made that RM16 and we decided to change the land use category to a RAC, the RAC is north of Paces Ferry, but this property is not contiguous to the RAC. So we would either have to set a great exception and allow something in a RAC without being contiguous, or we would have to include all of those other parcels or some of those parcels in order to make it contiguous. Last but not least, it is a transition zone. The transition zone was designated to provide a step down from the RAC and those high-intensity uses north of Paces Ferry to the lower-intensity residential uses that are south of Paces Ferry as well as below the railroad track. And as noted, all of those have been developed at or under the RM12 designation. So as long as the applicant's plans are still based upon being RM16 and the RAC, then I would say at this stage of the process, my recommendation would either be a recommendation of denial for those reasons, or a recommendation to the applicant that they have the option to withdraw their application without prejudice, and then that would allow them a significant amount of time to attempt to come up with a development that fits within the land use plan and the historical development patterns of this area. So, open to discussion from other commissioners.
I think, given when the applicant was up here and he was changing everything, I don't think that is cause to hold it because there were so many changes. I think his best option either would be to resubmit it, withdraw it today, resubmit it, showing all the changes and it meeting the land use plan and working with the residents, or, as you suggested, denial. So that would be also my recommendation.
It's a lot of know after you, know you first today, but that's nice. That's courteous. So, yes, what I heard, and the only reason I'm even mentioning this, what I heard the applicant suggest is that they might be willing, unless, I might have something in my ear, but I think I heard a suggestion they might be willing to remove 118 apartment units if they could get 118 senior units for sale, and that there's some restriction based on existing zoning that would prevent them from doing that. I thought I heard that. That's the only thing I heard that gave me hope for something that would be mutually beneficial in this circumstance. So if that's what I heard, then I can see a good reason for either a continuance or a withdrawal and resubmission, either one.
Depending on what you decide, I do hope you have community input and meetings to allow everyone to be heard, because there's obviously a lot of emotion and sensitivity to what you're trying to do.
I'll just add, as has been noted, we do often allow the ability to hold, but that's really only if we think we're moving forward to something that would be approved. And in my mind, what we suggested, the changes, is still something that would not be acceptable or that I wouldn't support. So therefore, I don't really see a reason to, hold this case and drag it out and have the applicant do a bunch of work if it's not going to lead anywhere. With that, there's been the suggestion made that the applicant may want to consider withdrawing. I don't know if they want to consider that at all, so I'll have you come up and just tell us whether you're interested in that at all before we make an actual motion here.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. And yes, thank you for the comments. And we would agree that we would like to withdraw based on the comments today.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and make a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the request to withdraw Z49 without prejudice. And John, I know in the past when that's happened, we've allowed the applicant to reapply without additional fees. Would that work in this situation? Testing, 1, 2.
That would work, Commissioner Waybright, but for this one, can we put like a time frame on it, say like 12 months to 24 months without a fee to reapply?
Yes, we'll put a 12-month time frame on that to reapply without a fee, and that would be my motion.
Okay, we have motion and a second from Judy. All in favor? And that motion carries 5-0 to allow the withdrawal without prejudice.
If you would go back to the consent agenda, the Z65.
Yes.
I talked to the attorney and the opposition that was here, and they would like to continue. I'd like to make a motion that we hold this case.
Well, we didn't hear it.
We didn't hear it, so we continue this case until the December hearing.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor of the continuance? Okay, and with that, I'm going to go back and ask that I'm going to make a motion that we amend the consent agenda for Z64. I forgot to read in some additional stipulations on that one. First one is that it should be a deletion to NRC, not CRC. And then that it's for light automotive repair and auto parts store use only. And then the letters from Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated October 9th, 2020 and October 16th, 2020, not otherwise in conflict. That there be a 20-foot buffer along a portion of the eastern property line from the southeast corner to the existing dumpster enclosure. The buffer may be reduced as necessary for the new dumpster enclosure shown on the site plan. All dumpsters to have rubber lids or rubber bump stops on the lids. The new building to fully conform to the Austell Road design guidelines. The existing building does not need to conform to the design guidelines unless improvements are made that trigger conformity. And then no more than one vehicle without current registration to be parked outside. And that's my amendment to the consent agenda for Z64. A second from Judy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, and that carries 5-0. Okay, with that, what's our next case, John?
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z53 of 2020, the Revive Land Group LLC requests rezoning from O&I to RM8 for townhomes, which are attached in land lot 389 of the 18th District. The property is located on the north side of Mapleton Parkway, on the east side of Dodgen Road, and on the west side of Bonanza Trail. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z53? Let the record show there's no one here in person opposed. There is one person virtually who's opposed, and we'll hear from that person when it's their turn to speak.
Okay, thank you, John. Go ahead when you're ready, Kevin.
Before we get started on this case, I just wanted to, I told Ms. Hope Cantor, who was here opposed to Z65, she wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to, if y'all could just confirm that it was continued to the December hearings, and I'd committed to her that we're going to, I'm going to call her and meet with her and a couple of her neighbors before your next meeting.
Yes.
And
Yes.
address their concerns.
Yes,
that way.
ma'am, that was the motion to continue so that the applicant can get with y'all and have meetings. We took care of you. You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Okay,
Thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Planning Commissioners, I'm Kevin Moore here on behalf of the Revive Land Group in this application for rezoning. This property is just over 7.5 acres. It's located on Mapleton Parkway. We've got your GIS zoning map. The property is currently zoned office institutional OI. You see it there in the center, the large blue OI piece with Mapleton Parkway running through the middle of this screen. And the purpose of showing you this is really to discuss in more global terms the surrounding area. And what you can see with this property is adjacent to a general commercial piece that's as well as across the street from NRC, across the street from an apartment complex that has seen far, far better days. The RM12 that you see there is an active apartment that is a rather rough area. In addition, you can see the surrounding areas to our rear. That's Bonanza Trail that this property also fronts as a larger R20 neighborhood, an older neighborhood. But then you also see surrounding developments of RM8, RM12, GC, and NS, and what you would expect along this section of Mapleton Parkway, which is older GC and commercial zonings along this area. What this area has not seen in a very, very, very long time is new residential development. This area south of South Gordon Road intersection with Mapleton Parkway is in dire need of new injection of residential development that's quality and that can revive this area so that it can see the growth, new quality residential development, new rooftops that other areas have seen in what I call greater Mapleton that have also seen that. And so this application is the start of that, we believe. Going to the site plan, a little bit about this in terms of some history and context. The initial site plan for this property showed a total of 65 homes. This was 7.5 acres for 65 homes. It was a site plan that wasn't even submitted for rezoning, but it was a site plan that was circulated with the owner and by a proposed developer. Since that time, we initially filed a zoning application for a total of 60 homes. We worked with Mapleton Improvement Coalition, with the community members that we were engaged with, and began a process of really looking at this plan and how we could improve it with community input. Ultimately, we submitted another revised plan that reduced the total number to 55 units, But then we also began really concentrating on certain design elements. For example, along Mableton Parkway, you'll see that the design now for this site plan shows when you look across the property, those units that are the first row of units, of townhome units that you see, those are actually facing out to Mableton Parkway. And that was a design element we employed intentionally so that, again, you could create an attractive look, not the rears of townhomes along Mableton Parkway, which you may find at other places, but here we're able to turn those and have them face out, which again creates that what we believe is a high-quality residential appearance for this proposed new neighborhood. In addition, we started working critically along the northern property line where we adjoin our 20 neighbors. Initially, with that revised plan, we did have a 25-foot landscape buffer, but it did have within that landscape buffer 2 retaining walls. That's necessary. This site does have some topography on it that we were dealing with, and we needed to address that with retaining walls that were actually in the buffer. That provides for, we were able to plant, but not provide for what the community felt and what those neighbors felt was a full and complete buffer, which would be necessary. So we continued to work on that, We ultimately reduced the number to 50, but still had the retaining walls in the landscape buffer, and that was the plan that we had submitted, as well as that went along with our letter dated October 28th. The plan that you see now is a new plan. It's a plan that we have just obtained as of yesterday. We were continuing to work, and this applicant was continuing to work. And we have shared this plan with Mableton Improvement Coalition, with Chairman Porter as well. This plan, though, makes a dramatic improvement along that key northern property line, which we had received a lot of comment on. This plan moves the units basically now, the closest one is just over 49 feet away from that northern property line. By shifting that change, we were able to also remove the need for retaining walls within the buffer. We can now provide for a full, complete landscape visual screening buffer along that northern boundary without having retaining walls inside that buffer at all. In addition, this plan no longer has any requested variances from the RMH standards for impervious surface or any other variance requests associated with this proposal. This plan contains numerous areas of community gathering and open space, as well as contains proposed pavilion as a community gathering structure. We have provided detailed stipulations dated October 28th that while addressed prior plan are still viable for us. We understand that because of the lateness of this plan being submitted, that it has not had a full time to be circulated or socialized among the community. But we felt that it was very important to come forward today, at least and publicly present what is a very good, an excellent improvement to address very specific concerns that had been communicated with us and to us by Mableton Improvement Coalition and our neighbors along that northern line so that we can make that improvement. In addition, we now have proposed elevations of the proposed townhomes, and you can see that these are quality townhomes in look and appearance. They are 2.5 stories, so that while the actual footprint got a little shorter, the actual square footage has now been increased to a minimum of 1,850 square feet. It was prior a minimum of 1,600 square feet. So we've been able to improve the size and quality of the townhomes, as well as do so in a manner that could very much affect this site plan in a way to address the community concerns. We fully anticipate that this commission will vote to hold this another month so that this could be socialized and circulated, and Mableton Improvement Coalition could have further chance to meet and discuss this with us. But we did want to take this opportunity to present what we think is a much improved plan. Wanted to make sure that you were aware of the Revive Land Group's efforts. This is now the 4th plan change that has occurred, and I want to give certainly applaud their efforts, tireless efforts and diligence in trying to meet community concerns and have those addressed through this site design. We think this design is excellent. It really checks all the boxes that we had been given and meets all of the concerns that have been expressed by Mableton Improvement Coalition as well as our neighbors. With that, we would respectfully request your recommendation of approval. However, we understand that this very well may be held because of the lateness in this just being received today and your inability to see it prior to today. But thank you for your opportunity to speak this morning. I'm here, can answer any questions. Mr. Neville Allison, principal of Revive Land Group, is also here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And with that, we'll hear from the opposition.
We have one virtual speaker, Robin Meyer. Robin, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Robin Meyer, and I am the chairman of the Zoning Committee for the Mableton Improvement Coalition. We very much appreciate how open to our suggestions and concerns the applicant, Mr. Moore, and the Revive Land Group have been. And I so much want to underscore our support for residential zoning on this property rather than the current commercial category. Specifically, we appreciate the improvement to the impervious surface calculation, the circular road network rather than the original dead-end road network, and the work along the northern boundary especially where it abuts Mr. Coggan's property. We would suggest, we're very happy to see that the retaining walls are out of the buffer and that there is no longer apparently a need for a retaining wall against the Coggans and McMurtry property. We would suggest that it might be feasible and hope that the applicant can take a look at moving unit number 4 to the group with units 1 through 3. We're not wedded to that idea. We need time to look and see exactly where Mr. Coggan's house is located on his property. Our goal is to get that unit get as much distance between that unit and Mr. Coggan's and his very small backyard as possible. We do note that this plan does still exceed the 5 units per acre called for in the medium density residential category. And it would be great if if we could make a little bit more progress towards that goal. But at this point, I do want to underscore how much we appreciate the cooperation we've had with the applicant, and we do look forward to continuing to work with them on this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. And I believe that was our only speaker. With that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing, and it's back to this board, and I'm handling this case. A couple things as Kevin Moore mentioned, the lake site plan change was really brought about by the county arborist, being pretty adamant that that retaining wall in the buffer would create a problem with actually developing a healthy buffer. The compacted soils and the geogrid and all of that you have to put in for a retaining wall do not allow for the buffer to grow as it should. So we really had to get that walls moved out of the buffer. And that went to the whole change from a 2-story product to 2.5-story product. But it was really to try and address some of the concerns of the neighbors and what their view would be from the rear. So I appreciate them working with us. As mentioned, I fully intend at the end of this to say that we, hold this case, but we wanted to get a few things on the record and some stuff out to the public. There was a little mention of the comprehensive land use plan and that it doesn't conform to it, which this is currently proposed at 6.5 units or 6.6 units per acre. And the land use plan goes up to 5 units per acre, but I want to point out that the current zoning doesn't conform at all to the land use plan, and it could be built today. And what's being proposed is far less intense than the current zoning, and for that I'm going to cover the current zoning a little bit. It was rezoned in 1999 for Cobb housing, but it wasn't specific to Cobb housing, so that zoning, as far as I know, is still valid. And it called for 2 buildings to be built on the property, one large 4-story building of 125,000 plus square feet, and one smaller two-story building of 24,000 square feet, plus dual ATM drive-through lanes. And with over 200 parking spots, with approximately 50 of the parking spots towards the rear, towards the residential, on the northern part. And in the four-story building, there would be 120 apartments on the top 3 floors, and then 31,000 plus square feet of retail office on the first floor. All of the apartments, the entry for the apartments would be to the rear of the building, close to the residential line, so that would cause a lot of activity at the rear of the building near the property lines of the adjacent residential. The two-story building was proposed for the top floor to be office and the second floor to be 100-plus child daycare. And as far as I know, that could be built today. I think it's still a valid zoning, and it wouldn't require coming through zoning or getting anything but besides filing the plans and getting permits and doing all those kind of things. So kind of summarize it, it's over 55,000 square feet of any kind of O&I use, which would be office, and it allows for retail in this case, 120 apartments and 2 drive-throughs compared to 50 townhomes. So just on the number of units, we're less than half without all the commercial uses as well. So I think this may be a case where it makes some sense to go above the land use plan based on what's already there. A 4-story building would be very towering over a lot of these properties where, we're going to 2.5-story product that's, at the absolute peaks, 37 feet, but I think around 30 feet where the wall meets the roof line, that's far less than a big 4-story building at the back of this property. So I think from that sense, this to me makes some sense if we get all the details worked out. One of the things we talked about, and it's hard to see on our GIS map a little bit, but the property furthest to the east that abuts on the northern property line, actually over with the hand, if you go up a little bit and back west just slightly on the northern property line, this one at the end of the cul-de-sac, the house itself sits very close to the property line. It was built before Cobb had zoning and setback requirements. And so that's the one that we have the most, concern of providing them some buffering and that's one that Robin Meyer mentioned as the Coggins property. With that, I talked to Kevin, and he was agreeable in kind of this area and behind the second house there to doing a 30-foot buffer instead of a 25-foot buffer that's required by code. And what the 30-foot would then allow is 3 rows of plantings instead of 2. So it just makes the buffer a little thicker. They've also agreed to plant at a height of 10 feet when they put in the plantings. And I think that will provide a lot of protection. I do agree with Robin about moving unit 4 from the end of one building down to the other building that has 3 units, because it does move it further away from the actual house of the Coggins. It's still behind their property, but it moves it more to their open area. And the other thing is that the elevation actually drops a little bit at that, so we'll be moving the building lower. And so I think that would be an improvement for them. One of the big things is DOT hasn't had a chance to review the plan yet, and I know there was concerns on the previous plan about the curve not meeting DOT standards, and they made some changes, and so So it's important for DOT to take a look at it and make sure that we have that. There's some room on the plan to tweak that and lengthen up the arc if we have to, or something like that. The previous plan actually had the southern road about 35 feet closer to Mapleton Parkway than it is now. One of the issues on it was, do we have the right footprints of the units on the site plan? Because actually on the site plan, if I scaled it out, it looked like a 24 by 34 foot footprint, but the title of the plan says 24 by 42 feet. So we just need, and this all went together very quick, so I think we just need to get that confirmed as to what it should be and get it shown properly. I think there's room on the plan, if it is in fact 42 feet, to actually put it on this plan. So I don't think that will create any big problems. We want to confirm that the units that face Mapleton Parkway will meet the Mapleton Parkway design guidelines. And I'd also like to see on the plan a 10-foot landscape enhancement strip along Mapleton Parkway to be installed to the design guideline standards. And I'm going to ask, and Kevin confirm, you can file a revised plan within a week, Kevin? Is that plenty of time? Okay.
More than plenty of time.
Okay. That way we can get it out to the community at plenty of time before our December hearing for all the staff to review it and the community to review it. So those are my comments. Anybody else have any comments before I make a motion? Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
I think the comments were well received, and I think the applicant, for once, has been listening, and I do agree with you on the density. Because it's zoned O&I, that maybe a little bit more density is called for, so I do agree with that. I didn't mean that exactly how it sounded.
It's okay. I didn't take it how you said it, so it's okay.
It did not come out quite like I wanted it to.
Thank you for clarifying.
My thought was better than that, Kevin.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Alice.
I just wanted to applaud the Revive Land Group for a much improved plan and for listening to all the comments.
That's really what I wanted to say.
Go ahead, Fred.
Can you just comment, Kevin, on the initial staff suggestion that this be deleted to RA5 and whether that would give you a reasonable use, and talk about the impact on the number of units that would impact if you were held to RA5?
Sure. The issue there is you reduce the number of units to no more than 5 units per acre. It takes it to such a low number that it makes it an economically unviable project as a residential project for this site, given its current entitlement.
So that would be 38 units. You don't feel that there's a market there for slightly larger units of a fewer number but larger footprint?
No, we do not feel like that market's there at all.
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned previously, once you get south of South Gordon Road and Mapleton Parkway intersection, there's nothing that has been built of recent times at all residentially. And so this is really what we have positioned as to begin that re-injection of quality residential here. And to do that, you got to create that, and it needs it needs 50 units. Like I said, this started with somebody else at 65, and so who thought the same thing, and we brought it down to the bare bones to be able to accommodate that. So,
thank you.
Sure. Thank you for your
and
question.
I'll add, this site has a lot of terrain on it, so it's a more difficult site to develop, so that's going to be a little bit more expensive as well. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
I think, Fred makes a point on the density and the recommendation. I would also say that sometimes staff's analysis is obviously a little more objective and going on that. And I think the nature, as Fred mentioned, that we are trying to take a parcel from O&I to residential. So from a commercial use fronting on a significant road, that some discretion on the density is appropriate from a subjective review on making that work. So I'm okay with the subjective review that's going on.
Okay, thank you. Well, if that's all the comments, I'll make a motion that we hold this case until our December hearing. All in favor? Okay, and that was seconded by Judy and carries 5-0 for a hold.
Thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. What's next, John?
You too.
Rezoning case Z56 of 2020, Venture Communities LLC, request rezoning from GC to R12 for condominiums in land lot A54 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of I-75 at the terminus of Leland Drive. The applicant is present. There is no one here virtually opposed. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z56? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Give me just a second to pull up. I have a couple of slides that I'd like to present. My name is Sean Randall with Venture Communities. With me today is Daryl Cook, our engineer with Watson Browning. Watson Browning has been doing engineering work in Cobb County for over 70 years. Daryl assures me that he wasn't part of the first presentation, though. But we're glad to have him here because I feel like there were some engineering questions that needed to be addressed from our last meeting, and I think Daryl is very qualified to address that. He also tells me that is going to be very nice to Georgia. His Florida Gators are going to be very nice to my Georgia Bulldogs this weekend in Jacksonville. So anyway, with that, we'll get started. And I sent y'all a revised zoning stipulation letter. And really, the meat of that is now in item number 21. And if I could just kind of go down that rather than go through the whole, because again, let me reiterate. First of all, I'm thrilled that there's no public opposition to this case. Venture's been doing, homes in Cobb County for over 35 years. In the last 5-6 years, we've built 1,400 homes in Cobb County, $400 million worth of real estate. So we're proud to be a part of Cobb County, and we look forward to doing this project. In 21A, there's a conversation about a 10-foot buffer. I think it was brought up last time, how we're going to screen against that commercial. We will absolutely do a 10-foot landscaping buffer along the entire southern property line. There was also some conversation about the Leland Drive right-of-way. Obviously, it's in place. We will continue to have it there. This site plan reflects as if Leland Drive right-of-way, as best we can tell, the deeds are a little bit hazy, but as best we can tell, that's where it's at. It's shown on the east side of the property, and that we will continue to honor that. Our recommendation, and we've been working with Erica Parrish at DOT, is to go ahead and abandon that right-of-way. And there's 3 or 4 reasons why we would like to do that. One, the slope is so severe going down to Rottenwood Creek that I think building a road there would probably, and our engineer can confirm, would make no sense to continue that road. Secondly, the creek crossing at Rottenwood Creek would be millions of dollars. And third, it would go into the future. I'm being told that that's a future park and maybe a future transit drop-off park location, possibly. And my understanding in talking with some representatives of the county is that in a park situation, the county typically favors one way in, one way out, so that you can lock those gates at night and you don't have that problem. So, and obviously the most logical entrance would be off Terrell Mill Road. So what we would propose to do in working with DOT, and we've gotten fairly favorable feedback, it's just not all 100% put to bed, is abandon that right-of-way, but also leave the county an easement up that right-of-way for a future walking trail, biking trail, again, to connect up to the Leland Drive, and then eventually across to all the trail systems over by the battery. You know, one of the things I mentioned at our last presentation was it's a half a mile to that Papado's restaurant from this site and a mile and a half to Truist Park, a mile and a half. So if you got on a comfortable pair of shoes, you can walk that, but it's a 10-minute bike ride. This project is geared to young millennials, young professionals who need to be in Midtown, possibly, you know, easy access to I-75. This is a young person's project. They want to get out of that apartment, buy a 300,000 plus, you know, 1,300 square foot to 2,100 square foot condominium. So anyway, if we can abandon the road, that's fine. If we can't, the site plan is geared towards Leland Drive being there. But if we do abandon, we'd be thrilled to give the county an easement to do that. Let's go to front elevation. We've since redrawn the product, and I want you guys to see this, because, and I put that in the package along with the photos. Well, that's the front elevation of the pictures of existing product, but I want to contrast that with, this TSW, I'm sorry, TSW front elevations. There it is. You can see much more contemporary colors. You've got corbels up in the gables. You've got more stone. You've got more stone on the sides. You've got banding between the floors. That was a concept that came out. You can see there's a nice band separating every floor. You've got a nice round window up there in the gable on the side. Much more stone, a much better, you know, we think a much better look. Let's go to the rear elevation, please. The TSW rear elevation. This is the rear elevation of the product, which we think is a much improved product. You can see stone in the 3 center towers going up 2 stories. Again, banding on all the floors, corbels in the gables, nice round decorative windows up there in the gables. That is the rear of the building. The other thing that came up was, what do you do about garbage and storage bins? If you see between the driveways, there's some flower boxes in there. That may be a little hard to execute, but there is screening of all the garbage cans, permanent screening. And you know, you'll have a gate accessible from your driveway. All those units, you know, your recycling and your garbage can all sit there. They're not smelling up the garage. You know, they're outside, but they're screened, okay? So we think architecturally, this is a significant improvement to what was presented last time. And I just put the photos in that thing just to remind you where we were versus where we are today. If you remember the photos, no banding in the back, very little stone, and certainly no screening of the we saw garbage cans before. So anyway, let's talk about these driveway aprons a little bit, because that came up very extensively. On this site plan, these driveway aprons are now 10 foot wide by 22 feet deep. That's from the back of the 5 foot sidewalk, 22 foot deep. Even I can park on that, okay? You can park an F-150, you can park a Suburban, you can park whatever. The garages are only 20 feet deep, okay? But, so you've got 2 real deal parking spaces for every unit, dedicated to every unit. So let's get into the RM12 code. What does and this is what we're asking for this project to be rezoned. RM12, the code is 1.75 parking spaces per unit. This site plan has 3.25 parking spaces per unit. It has the 2 we just talked about, plus 47 other parking spaces off-street. 47 other parking spaces, including 3 handicap, Daryl? Am I right about that, 3 handicap? So we really feel like we've got that covered, but we went an extra mile on this. If you notice the site plan, back to back on the curb is now 30 feet. 30 feet. A typical county road is 24 feet back to back. Why did we do that? In case the Domino's pizza man is there delivering that pizza to the back of the unit, whatever, got one lane block parallel parking. That still leaves you 22 foot to get that fire truck around. And 30 foot is the typical standard on a county road when you want to have parallel parking. So that's why we did that. We're not going to encourage parallel parking, but that's the standard. So we really feel like we've addressed that. All units will be sprinklered. All units will have the 1 hour fire rating between the walls. So 2 hours between the units. Underground detention. We've had extensive conversations with Dave Braden. Underground detention and water quality will work on this site. We've got to do a full hydrology, et cetera, but I think Dave is in agreement. We've talked about the architecture. I would submit that we would really like your approval today on this site plan and this product and this project. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sean. And just to verify, there's no opposition wishing to speak? Not seeing or hearing any. We'll close the public portion of the hearing, public comment portion, and it's back to this board, and I'll turn it over to Tony to lead our discussion.
All right, thank you. I would like to avail myself of your engineer, if he can come up, please.
Absolutely. That's why we brought him here.
Yes, sir. Darrell Cook with Watts and Browning Engineers.
Thanks. I would note, as a Virginia Tech alumni, I have no love for orange and blue either, so we share some things here, but we will take all that under advisement. Where would you put underground detention stormwater here?
Underneath the road system there. Pretty flat. We want to keep things pretty flat there, so we'll have underground storage underneath that area.
Okay,
Under
and
the streets.
volume-wise, you've at least roughed that out to determine that the required volume would fit under the roads?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We've done it many times, and it's really the way most folks are going these days with this type of community, underground.
All right, great, thank you. Let's see, do we have somebody here from Stormwater, or is that
Just
on?
before
Oh, I'm sorry.
it steps down, I have one question for you. I noticed that the 10-foot buffer in one area is right up against a retaining wall.
Right.
Is that retaining wall, is that buffer above the retaining wall, or is it below the retaining wall?
That is correct. The buffering is on the higher side of that, which gives you even more greater screening. And working with arborists in the past, we know that can't be a tie-back type wall because it would interfere with the plantings. So that would be a standalone wall. I think we've got room to pull it another 5 feet, of course, as well. We'll see how that goes in the final grading, but we will honor what's required by the arborist.
Okay, so you're confident you can engineer it so that the buffer will be viable?
Gators can engineer.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for Darrell Cook? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, I guess, is Carl online, Stormwater? Or President?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Can you
great.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Carl, have you had a chance to look, or I guess be involved in the discussions about the underground detention in this area?
No, not at this time, but it's not unusual that they could put it in the parking lot and in that common area in the center of the development.
Okay. Can you give us some comments or thoughts about the required stream buffering that would be going on if we locate the buildings where presented?
They're providing some buffer averaging for the 100-foot buffer, which is allowed, and I think we would be okay with that as long as it's not encroaching into the 50-foot buffer, which there's also an existing 20-foot sanitary sewer easement that's running through that 50-foot buffer.
Right, and now I guess that, I know we've always tried to maintain at least a 10-foot setback from the sanitary. We've got 10 feet there on a setback?
From
yes,
what
we
I
do,
can
for
tell
sure.
on this plan, yeah, they do.
Okay.
And that's an existing sanitary sewer easement. We're not putting that in, of course.
Right, correct. It's making sure we're protecting that.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have questions for Carl?
No.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
All
Next,
right.
fire safety. Mary, I see you're here.
Mary Lanning, Cobb Fire Marshal's Office.
Thank you. I know you've had numerous conversations and discussions regarding the parking on site. Where do you think we stand in terms of adequate parking on this site at the moment?
On this site plan, what's being provided would be something different than we've approved to date. So I put the information in an email. I'm sending it up through the chain of command. Did that this morning. It'll take several days to hear back, but a decision will need to be made because it will set a precedent.
Okay, could you discuss what that?
The precedent would be counting guest parking as being in the driveway of the unit.
Okay. So at the moment, if you were just following the book, you would be looking for 2 striped parking spaces for every unit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I thought Sean referenced 47 off-street spaces. Were you counting the driveways when you said that, or?
No.
Okay.
No.
So-
That's, the driveways are not included. And again, I go back to the code is 1.75 per unit
Well,
for RM12.
One
That's-
piece
that-
of the code. The other
yeah.
piece is the fire marshal.
Right.
And how many units total are there again?
123.
Huh?
3 units.
I think we said units.
And we
No.
also do
How
have
many-
that parallel
Was it
parking in the.
123 units?
How many
It's
residential
not.
units?
No, 38 units.
That's what I
38,
thought.
123 spaces.
So if there's 47, I guess it is, the fire marshal requires two spaces because there's only 1 car driveway and 1 car garage, where we're used to thinking in terms of 1 or half a space. So that's why we're
But
we're
we
short
do
on
have a
that.
30-foot wide street in that neighborhood. So if someone does park on the side, that vehicle can still get by.
Okay. That's, guess that really gets to, I'll give it back to you and let you
Thank you.
give us your thoughts on it.
So within that, in my discussions with Mary, there is a process where they do request what would be considered a letter of equivalency, explaining why the applicant believes that the parking provided is sufficient given the nature of the site and the number of units. And I guess, Mary, you can just nod, but I assume that kind of formal request has not come in, or what do we need to do there?
No, I have it and I've sent it on.
Okay. So within that framework, knowing that there are some things that we do leave for plan review, and with the applicant understanding that we're not granting an exception yet for fire safety, that they need to make their decision on whether, from an equivalency standpoint, you've provided adequate parking.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'm ready to make a motion if there's any other questions or comments.
Not seeing any, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of Z56 based on the new submitted site plan. Stipulation letter, what's the date on the most recent stipulation letter?
1025, but I can update that because the driveway apron length isn't correct. There's a couple of notations, so I'd be glad to update that per our meeting today.
Okay. So with the stipulation letter dated 10/25, to be amended to reflect the 30-foot width of the road, that the parking spaces on the driveway will be 10 feet wide by 22 feet long from the garage door to the edge of the, I guess you would call it the back edge of the sidewalk. All staff comments and recommendations, specifically noting that we need to have approval from stormwater on the buffer averaging, approval from stormwater on the underground detention, and that we specifically need final approval and recommendations from fire and safety on the on-site parking. And that would be my motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Second from Alice. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's call the question. All in favor? And that carries 5-0.
Would that be consent agenda material?
Yes, if we can resolve this, that would be great.
Yes, how do we do this? You want an amendment to the motion that's already been approved, or withdraw that motion and?
No, we'll just amend the motion.
Let's just add to that, we'll add that this can be added to the consent agenda subject to staff approval as noted.
Okay, and we'll just take a quick vote on it, and 5-0 for adding it to the consent agenda. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, congratulations, Sean. With that, we're on to our next case. What's next, John? Oh, we want a break. Okay. I've been asked to take a break, so we'll take a 10-minute break and be back at 10:51. Thank you. Welcome back. We returned from our break. We have a few more cases to hear. John, what's next on our agenda?
Yes, sir. Moving into land use permits on the agenda today. First one is LUP 18, Shang Wan, request a temporary land use permit to allow more adults and vehicles than the code allows in land lot 517 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Piedmont Drive, south of Umland Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 18?
I see 6. This is Judy's. Lucky you.
Okay, let the record show there's 6 people here in person opposed. There's no one virtually opposed to this. So at this point, we would ask the applicant to come forward to be sworn in, to present testimony. And also, while he's getting sworn in, can those folks who want to testify in opposition please come forward to be sworn in also?
Let me wait just a second while she swears him in. Okay. Whenever you're ready, give us your name and go ahead and give your presentation.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Xin Guan. I'm the owner of the 2944 Piedmont Drive. I came to America 5 years ago, so my English is not so good. I hope I can try to let you understand what I'm doing. Thank you. I hope commission can allow me rent my house to 6 different unrelated adults, because by the code of the Cobb County, I can rent my house to 1 family and 1 unrelated adult only. That's why today I come to here. And why I hope commission can allow me rent the house to 6 different people, because that way can help different people. I have approved. I have 4 different leasing contract. The contract signed in the same day. The date is July 4th, 2020. When I put my advertisement to the market, 4 different people come to my house, hope I rent the different bedroom to them. Because I charge them with very cheap price, $500 only per person. So, especially for the COVID-19 pandemic, they cannot get too much salary. They cannot get too much income. So that we really can help them. And I know my neighbor really concerned. I will make some trouble in the community. I talk to part of them. I told them, when I rent the house to different people, I run in the background and credit check to every applicant, to every tenant. If they do not have good credit, or for example, the evacuation record or bad record, I will never rent the house to them. So I do not, I compromise, and I do not believe I will make any trouble in the community. And about the code enforcement office, they give me a ticket when they learned I rented the room to different people. They told me that they gave me the ticket after that, and I must rent the house to one family and one unrelative adult only. They give me they have a record. The record said my house has 1,300 square feet only. But after that, I called the tax commission. They came to my house. They take a measure to my house. So after that, my house is actually square feet is 2,814 square feet. This paper I get from the tax commission office. My office's yearly square feet is 2,814 square feet. So by the code, every adult should have at least 390 square feet. My house can live in 7 adults. So I hope commission give me only six adult permission. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I get the zoning staff analysis. The paper said, people said if the commission give me the permission, maybe this request may have a negative effect on the surrounding property value. I don't think so. If the I can rent the house to different people, I can help them. And if I cannot do that, maybe I have to sell the house with a cheap price. So that's really will make the negative effect on the surrounding property. And okay, and the zoning staff analysis said having more unrelative adult than allowed will start to diminish the low intensity character of the residential neighborhood. Just as I said, the property can live in 7 adults, one family. But my apply is 6 adult only. So I will not allow more adult live in the house. So that's analysis is not so correct. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I hope I have tell you all what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, my neighbor.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll hear from the opposition.
Okay.
So just have a seat.
My name is James Shear. I live at 2959 Piedmont Drive, Marietta, Georgia, 30066. I live directly across the street from 2944. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to address the opposition to LUP 18 regarding the property at 2944 Piedmont Drive, Marietta, 30066. I would also like to thank my neighbors for showing up to support one another and our community. There are several individuals who cannot make this hearing today due to this being the election day. As you can see by the signed opposition letters, and I have 26 of them in this package right here, this is an important issue to those who can and cannot physically be here. I've been a proud homeowner in Piedmont Heights subdivision for 15 years. Since then, I've seen the passing or moving on of at least 8 original residents of a community that was founded 55 years ago. Some of their children have moved back into the houses they grew up in. They have shared that this, meaning our neighborhood, feels like home. That statement alone has sparked a personal interest for me in the future of our neighborhood, not only for myself, but also for those around me. We are a diverse 38-house subdivision. Our residents consist of homeowners, renters, young, old, single, married, gay, Latina, black, white, and yes, even Asian. Everyone is welcome, but everyone lives within the definition of a single-family home. Cobb County Code refers to a dwelling as, and I quote, "A dwelling consists of one or more rooms which are arranged, designed, or used as living quarters for one family, including up to one unrelated adult or 2 or fewer unrelated adults and their children or grandchildren." What is proposed is a variance to that specific meaning of single-family dwelling. This by an individual has no vested interest in our community. He has never lived there, and to the best of my knowledge, he never plans to. His interest appears to lie in the rental house itself and the money it can generate. Since the purchase of this property in June of 2020, I've personally witnessed a series of haphazard attempts at renting this home. It started out as what I would consider a boarding house. Rooms were to be rented at a price of $500 to $980 per month on a month-to-month basis. It was advertised offering 5 bedrooms. When this house was purchased in June of 2020, it was listed as a 3-bedroom home. Walls and doors were erected to change the capacity of the rentable rooms. After the homeowner was cited for violation number 2020-03658, he reduced the advertisement as 1 bedroom for $500. At that time, there were already 4 different unrelated individuals living in the house. That boarding room on a month-to-month arrangement has been advertised off and on until as late as September 1st. On October 8th, he advertised the house for sale at $350,000. At that same time, in a separate advertisement, it was offered for lease at $1,900, with no mention of a tenant or 2 that still resides in the basement apartment as of today. The for sale house states that there were 5 bedrooms. The for lease house states there are 4. This is all screenshotted, and I have the screenshots here in this folder. As of today, November 3rd, it appears 2 more tenants have moved in. This, in addition to the 2 that live in the downstairs apartment, would exceed the maximum of 2 unrelated adults. It would also make it the second time the homeowner has violated the Cobb County Code. All this has created a disruptive traffic pattern and suspicions of the house, tenants, and owner. I believe this sets up a pattern of deception. Some of that deceit is evidenced by retraction letters that I also have in this folder that were signed by neighbors that originally and unknowingly supported the variance. The information provided by the homeowner verbally misrepresented when he asked them to sign the petition. There's a basement efficiency apartment. It has a separate entrance but can still be accessed from the main floor. This is probably regarded as bedroom number 5. Bedroom number 5 is necessary consideration when addressing health codes and the environment when it pertains to a house on a septic system. According to Cobb and Douglas Public Health, an on-site sewage management system repair modification permit that was issued on 07/13/2007, and it was provided to me. I also have that here. This property is recognized as a 3-bedroom household. Because of poor soils being annotated on the permit, the septic system cannot accommodate additional bedrooms. Furthermore, according to Cobb and Douglas Public Health, there were never any permits pulled to do any room additions or modifications. The basement apartment and the garage turned master bedroom may not technically exist. Therefore, one must conclude that this dwelling should be considered a 3-bedroom house, and 6 unrelated adults occupying this house would be excessive. In addition, there would be no reason to increase the maximum number of vehicles parked at this residence. According to the zoning staff on the land use permit application, the number permitted by code is 4. The last 4 families to move into our community are people in their early 30s. 3 of these 4 have young children. Overall, the average age of the residents has gone down. I bring this up as an important fact. These people are looking to invest in their homes and their families, and they have a right to protect both. Allowing 6 unrelated adults to occupy a single-family dwelling jeopardizes that right. There are codes in the book to protect such interest, and they should be adhered to as originally written. In this specific incident, I ask the Planning Commission to do what's best for our community and deny the request in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker. Okay. Okay, so with that, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. It's back to this board, and Judy will lead our discussion.
I will. This is as he stated, a 55-year-old subdivision, but well-kept brick homes. This is a well-kept home that we're talking about today. I went out on site and visit, and there was only 1 car there at the time. I believe I saw the neighbor across the street too, and we talked just a little bit. To maintain the character of a subdivision this old means that you've got to maintain the single-family quality of the neighborhood. The goal of a home is not for you to rent it out and help pay for that home. The goal of a subdivision is usually when you buy a home, you live in the home. You don't rent it out by the rooms. You don't rent it out by the hour or the day or whatever you're doing. You don't rent it out like that. So to come in and ask for 6 people when, in essence, when I talked to you, you told me there were only 2 living there, 2 women living there, and that you wanted 4 more women. Well, it turns out that you actually have a gentleman, I believe, living there in the basement, and that you have moved in some other people. So clearly, the rules of the county, either you don't understand them or you're not following them. I don't know which, but I'm not going to prolong this. I think clearly this is a single-family dwelling. It needs to be a single-family residence. And unless y'all have some comments, I'd like to make the motion to deny this.
Okay,
Sure.
why don't we, since she made a motion, can we get a second, and then we'll open it for comment? Second by, I guess Tony was first at the second. Okay, we'll open it up for comment before we.
Yes, is it Mr. Shear? Can you come back up? I just have a couple questions for you. Are there some rental houses in the neighborhood?
Yes, there are.
Okay, and so there's nothing stopping this gentleman from renting this house out according to the rules that govern single-family houses in that neighborhood. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, yeah, that's a fair statement.
Okay. That's
And
all I have.
He knows that. I told
Yeah,
him that.
okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And my only comment is just simply that the gentleman argued that he's somehow being denied a reasonable economic use by us, which is just simply not true. There is a reasonable economic use for him. He can rent the house out to a single family, or he can sell the house. And if he chose to pay too much for a property thinking he could run a hotel or a boarding house in a single family neighborhood, that's not our problem.
Right. And I'll just add, I think the staff did get the analysis right on the various criteria, and it would deteriorate the neighborhood to have essentially a rooming house there. So with that, any other comments? Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to deny? That carries 5-0 to recommend denial to the Board of Commissioners. Okay, what's next, John?
Moving on, LDP 19, Karen Gooding, request a temporary land use permit for a temporary business, which is a home hair salon in land lots 622 and 637 of the 19th District. The property is located at the terminus of Foxwood Court. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 19? There's no one here in person, and there's no one online to oppose LUP 19. So we would ask the applicant come forward to be sworn in to present their case. Thank you.
Talk about running to just women.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? Give us your name
I'm
for the
good.
record.
My name is Karen Gooden, and I live at 1910 Foxcroft Court, Marietta, Georgia. I've lived there for 41 years of my life, raised kids there. They've moved on, gotten married, had children. I have 5 grandkids. And I have worked off and on for 46 years in the Marietta area doing hair. I worked on commission for years. In the last 26 years, I've worked in Bobby's Style Shop on South Cobb Drive, which is like an extended Steel Magnolias, because I was the baby. My boss is about to turn 88 years old, and COVID-19 took us out. It just took us out. I was the youngest at 62, and all the other hairdressers couldn't take it. Can't wear the mask, can't deal with it, can't just, we're in such contact with people, it's been very difficult. So they started dropping out, retiring, each one of them, which left me and my 88-year-old boss, who said, I think it's time to retire. I don't even want to look for more hairdressers at this point in time. So I thought, oh, what do? I've got to find something to do. So I would like to make 50 years doing hair. That's my goal, which is 4 or 5 more years around that. And I have a customer base that has slowly been dropping as people have moved away. I've not taken new customers in 12 years. So mainly because mine keep reproducing. I'm up to 4 generations of some family, and I did my first 5th generation about a month ago. And so it's just, I want to complete my purpose in life, I believe, to these people. I want to be able to bring them into my home and do their hair. All I want to do is put, or what I would like to do, is put my station and my chair and a shampoo bowl in my garage that we turned into a den 30 years ago so we didn't have to go to our bedroom when our children had company. So it has been a room for 30 years, and I just want to renovate it and turn it into a place where they can come in a separate area than my house, a side door, and then I plan on making it handicapped accessible because I have an 11-year-old named Emma who would be devastated if she couldn't get in the house. And my mother was handicapped for quite a few years with ALS. So this is what I am trying to do. I live in a cul-de-sac. I have spoken to each and every person on my cul-de-sac. I have wonderful neighbors. They're just wonderful. And each and every one were totally on board, signed the paper, and agreed that they thought this would be fine. We enlarged our driveway when our children were teenagers because we had too many cars. So I have plenty of ample parking place in the driveways. I will not have but one person unless they've built friendships with a second person and they request to come together. I plan on only doing one customer at a time. I work 3 days a week. You know, I'm cut back, I'm getting old, can't hold my arms up as much as I used to could. So this is what my request is.
Okay. Let's see. I think that covers that. Just hang there for a second. Do we have any opposition? Okay, we have no opposition, so I will close the public comment portion of the hearing and come back to this board. And it sounds...
You have the best view shop.
It sounds like you've planned it out. You do understand that the land use permits we issue are temporary in nature and typically only for a year for the first year. Okay. So just see how it works out with the neighbors and everything. And then you can apply for a renewal, but it's, you know, they're designed not to be a permanent, ongoing, forever kind of business.
Right.
Okay. And I know you said you're looking for maybe four years or so to wrap up your
right.
your career.
I may hate it. You know? So I may be the one running in a year.
And, you know, and you said you're going to work Monday, Thursday, and Fridays
Yes.
only?
Yes, that's what I work now.
And would 9 to 6 p.m., I know you put less hours, and you said it kind of varies. as-
You know, I don't go in before 10 because it's not safe for me to cut hair before 10. But sometimes I do work to 7,
Till what time?
till 7.
Okay, so you'd be happy with 10 to 7. I just don't want it to be bothering your neighbors or
No, I don't
or
either.
anything like that.
I love my
That's-
neighbors. As a matter of fact, they keep saying they want to come get haircuts, and I keep saying, I don't take new people.
And that, and you did mention you do have a large driveway. I drove by your home. Because of COVID, I haven't been stopping and knocking on people's doors like I did before COVID. They kind of wonder when somebody strange shows up at their door. And that, I did notice it looked like you had a trailer that was parked on the dirt.
Yes, and that was because we've been trying to renovate our home.
Okay,
We've been gutting rooms through the COVID and working on them ourselves, my husband and I, and he's been doing all the painting and all this, so we have been cleaning out closets. That is my brother's trailer. It will not live there.
okay, because the Cobb County parking standards don't allow it to be parked on the dirt.
Okay.
So just try and make sure, and other people will need to park in your driveway, not out on the street.
Yes, and the trailer will disappear before the
Okay.
time allotted to.
Okay. And you're going to be the only employee, you're not going to have any employees or anything like that?
No, sir, that's one of my problems. I don't think I could deal with not being the baby at this point.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions before I make a motion? Okay, you can go ahead and have a seat and.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, okay, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of LUP 19 for 12 months with, subject to the following: all staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Hours of operation, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday, Thursday, and Friday only. All parking on hardened surfaces. Applicant to be the only employee, no independent contractors, and I'll recommend it for the consent agenda for the Board of Commissioners. And that's a motion. Second from Judy. Any other further discussion? If not, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that passes 5-0, so congratulations, and don't forget to come back in 2 weeks for the Board of Commissioners. Okay, what's next, John?
Okay, moving into special land use permits on the agenda. SLUP 11, Habersham Wildwood LLC, and SWH Windy Hill LLC. Request a special land use permit for a suite hotel in land lot 941 of the 17th District. The property is located on the north side of Windy Hill Road, east of Paris Ferry Road. Is the applicant present? Correct. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here in person opposed to SLUP 11? No, there's no one here in person that opposes SLUP 11. We do have 2 people virtually who oppose the case and would like to speak. So at this point, I would ask the applicant to come forward, be sworn in, so they can present their case.
Good morning, Planning Commission members. My name is Larry Bielski with Architects Construction Group. I represent Habersham Wildwood LLC can't read my own handwriting, I'm sorry. It's a joint venture between Habersham Wildwood, who is the owner of the property, and the clients that I own, that I work with, which is Spring Hill Suites. Spring Hill Windy Hill LLC, my apologies. We're proposing, the property is located in the Cumberland Regional Activity Center and has certain restrictions that go along with that. We're proposing to build a 6-story, 77,000-plus square foot hotel, 110 rooms, 111 parking spaces. The exterior, subject to approval, is be ephes stone and/or brick. It contains a 2-story parking deck with the first level being 38 units, which is a ground level check-in required by the ordinances. Administration, hotel operations, 2 meeting rooms, which are guest-only meeting rooms. I want to point that out. Business center and seating. Then a second-level parking deck. It includes a portion of the hotel that houses the fitness center, kitchen, breakfast, and seating. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th levels are hotel rooms, storage rooms, and maids and linen closets. We have met the staff comments. Utilities are available. We submitted a utility report that was done by the previous applicant and landowner. We meet the parking requirements in that we do not have a restaurant in the facility. It does have breakfast operations like a typical hotel. But we have the meeting rooms are for guests only. We didn't, the ownership will not rent those out, and that puts us into a category of 1 per unit. So we have 111 units and 111 parking spaces, 110 rooms. Your maximum height in this property was 6 stories, kind of predetermined it when the Hilton Garden Inn was built, and probably had something to do with the airport. 4.5 12-pitched roof. We've added that to it. The facade is subject to final approval by the board. Landscaping is subject to final approval by the board. The existing detention pond is on site, and we have the access to the design of that facility, and our civil engineer would therefore incorporate that design and see what else needed to be done to the detention facility that's there. I can't say at this point that it was designed for additional development, but we can make the stormwater system work to meet stormwater management requirements. We do have a letter from Carl Von Hagel with the airport manager at Cobb International Airport. He's looked at the documents and approves the project as far as no interference with air traffic. We are requesting 2 variances. One is land lot size. Ordinance requires 2 acres minimum. We have 1.912 acres. We're a little bit short. We can't do anything about that. We're also requesting a variance for a west side setback reduction from 35 feet to 25 feet. That setback variance is on the Hilton Garden Inn side of the property, which would be, you can see it there between the two, the Hilton Garden Inn and the yellow property line. This property was brought to me by the investors that I work with, and it had undergone some previous attempts to get a hotel there and ran into a lot of opposition, a lot of problems, and they brought it to me and asked me, is there something we could do to get a hotel on this site? Acknowledging that it's a little bit short in size, I looked at it and said that, the problem with the previous application was a lot of resistance because of the temporary access road that serves the Hilton Inn on the north side. It also has an access road on the south side. I said, well, then we need to look at, will a hotel fit without giving up the temporary access and turning that into permanent access after construction? The other problem was, as I understand, was resident opposition to a hotel structure bordering the site. In doing what investigation I could do, the Hilton Garden Inn was built, the residence property was built after the Hilton Garden Inn, which therefore requires now under ordinance a 35-foot landscape buffer. There's an existing 25-foot parking spaces asphalt along that east side property line. And when I talked to the zoning officer down at on Powder Springs Road, he said, well, now you've got a 35-foot buffer. So we got rid of that parking spaces and came up with a solution that includes the 2-story parking deck and the rooms above under the at the 6-story minimum or maximum. That all being said, I think part of the opposition that I feel is regarding the neighboring property. I'd like to put up something on the screen here just to might help clarify it from my perspective. This is the view from Windy Hill as you enter the property. I just wanted to point out that we are going to add the 35-foot buffer, tear out the 25-foot parking spaces, tear out the asphalt, and put in a landscape buffer. That allows for about 18 foot of that buffer. The rest of it is existing. And there's a tree line there that right now is probably in the 50, 60-foot tall range. So there's a natural buffer there that will remain that helps provide an additional buffer for the residential properties. So I'd also like to point out, just for us to get a perspective, to help get a better perspective on this from an aerial view, the residential community that is there, their line of view is to a tree line that is higher than the condominiums that are there. So we don't feel that asking approval of this project from is unreasonable, and the argument that we're bordering a residential neighborhood it just isn't that strong. We don't feel like it's got us a lot of merit. There's 500 feet from the one section of the residence. The section that's closest to the property has the same tree line buffer in addition to the one we're going to add. And it has, by code, by ordinance, there's our businesses within that condominium. And that's allowed by code, of course, but by ordinance. So you've got businesses operating side by side, even though you've got a residential and OMR district. When we go to the west side buffer, the west side setback, we're just simply requesting a reduction in the setback. Can we make the hotel fit without it? Yeah, we could shave off a few rooms, but in discussing with the investment group, they said, well, let's give them the buffer back, take out the parking spaces, don't ask for that variance. Just keep it simple and direct, and let's see if we can't get 110 rooms. Okay.
Sorry. Ask you to wrap up. You're about a minute over already.
I think I'm wrapped up, really. I think I've said it all.
Okay.
We are requesting, of course, approval and consideration if you have any reservations to let us come back and address those reservations.
Okay. Thank you. And now we'll hear from the opposition. And the opposition will have 11 and a half minutes.
We have 2 virtual speakers. The first one is David Kirk.
Okay.
David, you are unmuted and can speak.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is David Kirk. I'm with the law firm of Troutman, Pepper, Hamilton, Sanders at 600 Peachtree Street, here representing the owner of the adjacent property, ML Wildwood Holding, as well as the Hilton Garden Inn. Sorry I can't be there with you in person. I injured my back clearing debris from my yard after the storm last week. But I hope to be with the Board of Commissioners at their meeting in a couple of weeks. I sent you all a letter near the end of last week expressing a number of concerns that we have regarding this application. Quite frankly, they're similar to concerns that we raised along with the neighbors at the flats at Riverwalk Condominium when a similar proposal was brought before you in 2019. That one was withdrawn. Frankly, there's less information to go on with this application, which is one of our concerns. There seems to be a lot less information provided to you and provided to the community. I'm going to touch on a few of the points that I raised in the letter. A couple of things. One is they appear to want to use or have a statement in their application about the parking on the east side of their, the east side of Hilton Garden Inn property, the west side of their property. That's an exclusive easement to the Hilton Garden Inn. It is not shared parking as they suggest. We have a concern about improper parking from their guests on property that we have the rights to. There's also a slope easement on that side. It is not clear where that slope would be undercut. They provided no plans related to any sort of retaining wall, though they say there's going to be one there. It does appear that based on their variance request, which they say they don't really need, but they want to the west side of their property, that because of the location of that parking easement, that cars will be parked within about 5 feet of the external walls of their hotel, if I'm understanding it correctly. I think one of the biggest issues that we face here is the one of intensity. The applicant said that they're a little short in terms of the size of the property. And I think if you simply look at what's the difference between 2 acres and what's the difference between 1.9 acres, then that's correct. That may seem reasonable on its face, but if you look deeper, you'll find that there's very little room on that property to develop a hotel. And if staff could bring up the aerial photograph, that would be extremely helpful for this portion of my remarks. But I'll proceed. There we are. There we go. You see on the south side of the property, about a third of the property, maybe a little less than a third of the property, is a drainage retention area. That's clearly not buildable. So from the 1.9 acres that they say they have, you have to eliminate about 0.6, 0.7 acres. In addition, much of the remaining paved area is burdened by drainage easements, parking easements, access easements, slope easements. So that leaves really somewhere less than an acre, essentially that green area in the middle for the hotel. The Hilton Garden Inn to the west has about 123 rooms. So slightly more rooms than is proposed at this location, yet it's on 2.8 acres. What the applicant is suggesting is they can put a all-suites hotel that's roughly the same size, just a slightly smaller, but do that on property that is well less than half the size of the Hilton Garden Inn property in terms of buildable area. That's, the proverbial putting 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound sack from our perspective. We've not seen any landscaping plans. We've not seen any building design plans, which were provided with the previous application that was withdrawn. So For those reasons, we have some serious concerns about the viability of this project, and would suggest that it fails to meet the standards set forth in your ordinance for the approval of a special land use permit. I have been in communication with the folks at the flats at Riverwalk, particularly Mr. Jerry Galt and Ms. Robin Carlson. I don't know if they are on or if they were able to stay on for the 2.5 hours since the meeting began, but I know they have concerns. I believe that Justin Bird, who is the general manager of the Hilton Garden Inn, is on as well. And I'm going to yield the remainder of my time to Justin and the folks from the flats at Riverwalk, if in fact they are on, but would respectfully request that you all recommend denial of this application. And thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you, David. Who's our next speaker?
Justin Bird. Justin,
Okay.
you're unmuted and can speak.
Hey, how we doing today? My name is Justin Bird. I'm the general manager of the Hilton Garden Inn since 2014. I've been here for about 10 years. This is the second time that we have dealt with this issue at hand. I believe the biggest issues with this project is taking 21 of our parking spots and calling them shared parking so that the new project can get to the number of spaces that they need is going to leave both of us at inadequate parking. Let's see. They have also not addressed how they are going to have deliveries made to their hotel. Will they have deliveries blocking one of the access roads? There's obviously going to be no access to the back of the building for a truck to get in. So where will these deliveries be made? They have also not addressed how we will have access during construction. For a truck to get in here, we really need both of those access roads, and they had just said that after construction we would have access to both access roads. So does that mean during construction we will not have access to both access roads to the hotel? And they've also not addressed where their trash will be. Will their trash be an ungodly sight for the front of our hotel? And then lastly, our concerns are during construction, how much disruptance is it going to be to our business? Will we have people simply turn in and turn out, not wanting to come to this hotel, seeing all the construction right out front? So those are my biggest issues that I have at hand, and we strongly encourage y'all to not accept this. That's all I got for today.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Do we have any other speakers?
There are no other virtual speakers.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing, and it's back to this board, and I'll let Tony lead our discussion.
All right, Chairman, thank you. Appreciate everybody's comments and attempts to find a way to make this project work. With that said, this is under a special exception for this zoning category, so there's already numerous permitted uses that this property would be economically viable for. There is a minimum for 2 acres, and at some point in time we have to say, well, why was that minimum set? And I think what we see here is that there is in fact some minimum needed in order to make a suites hotel fit. We see that they've requested a parking easement because they cannot get enough dedicated parking on their own. We've heard from the attorney that the Hilton believes those are not shareable spaces, that they are exclusive use under that parking easement. The detention facility that exists is sized for the 2.8 acres for the Hilton Plus. It would potentially have to be enlarged for this project. And then we see that they need a setback variance in order to begin to fit everything in. I think it all adds up to simply say that the usable portion of this site is too small for a suite hotel, be it this hotel, the one that was proposed a year ago, this site is too small for a suite hotel use. There are many different permitted uses, and I think the owners will undoubtedly be able to find one of those, but my recommendation would be denial of this project to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so that's a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any further discussion? Briefly. Okay, go ahead, Fred.
I don't know the whole history of this property, but it seems to me that some interesting investment decisions have been made here, including retaining parking on the lot that then got sold off. I assume at one point this was one property that was owned entirely by the folks who now own the Hilton Garden Inn, or?
It was originally zoned, all 4.7 acres were zoned for one hotel,
right,
with all the necessary parking, and then 2 years later, the original Marriott had faded away, and Hilton came in and was able to fit their project mostly on the 2.8 acres.
Right. So what I'm not aware of from this one photo, in this one photo, it's clear that almost all the parking spaces within the parking easement are being utilized. However, it's equally clear that there's that the Hilton has excess parking, at least at this hour of the day. However, as we all know, that the peak demand for those parking spaces would probably be sometime in the evening, not during the middle of the day. So I can't tell from one photo whether the Hilton otherwise has adequate parking. But as it stands right now, as I understand the facts presented, the Hilton has the right to utilize those parking spaces under an easement agreement, right? Those are the facts presented?
Yes, the easement was applied to this 1.9 acre parcel so that the Hilton would have the required number of parking spaces from the zoning and the variance that was applied for the parking at the time.
So that's just one of several challenges presented, including the detention pond currently being on this property. And yes, and essentially the primary means of access to this property winding through this 1.9 acres as well, correct?
Correct.
So it's a very challenged property. I don't think it's appropriate to suggest that it would never be appropriate to grant a variance to build a hotel on less than 2 acres. I think a hotel with a few smaller keys, but for these additional challenges, would be entirely appropriate on 1.9 acres. But this is a very challenged lot, and for that reason, I concur in your analysis.
Okay. Anybody else? I'll just say I think I agree with the analysis that it's already short in size, and then it's burdened by a bunch of variances. And as I understand it, those 21 spots are not only an easement, but they're also required under a variance that was applied for this property to have those exclusive spots off their site. I was applied for the neighboring parcels so for those reasons, I think I'll support the motion to deny. So with that, no further discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to deny, that carries 5-0. Okay, and I think that completes the zoning agenda, right? Right. Yep, so, and then we have other business, and that is we've all had a calendar for 2021 circulated and reviewed it. So what we need to do is does somebody want to make a motion to adopt it?
I make a motion we adopt the calendar as presented for the year 2021.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I guess Alice was first on the second. Barely. All those in favor of adopting? Okay, that carries 5-0. And then we have some minutes to adopt.
And I make a motion that we approve the minutes of October the 14th and October the 26th as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Alice did the second. Did she beat you to it again? All those in favor? Okay, and that carries 5-0. Is there any other business? I don't think so. Just remind everybody, if you haven't voted already, go out and vote,
Yes.
and we'll adjourn the meeting.